in Miami. I know it's not Wednesday. We're a little late date. Welcome to Fast Break on a Thursday night. As always, my main man, Clutch. What's up, buddy? How you doing today?
What's going on, man? Everything good? Just trying to live through this heat season.
it's it started off rockier than we expected. I don't think any of us envisioned certain situations with injuries. We envisioned the team trying to find an identity, but there are some alarming concerns. I'm not too worried, to be honest with you, because I know we somehow tend to figure it out, and I'm always one for the notions of injuries. Sometimes lead you to a space that you weren't expecting, and it opens up certain perspectives, or pushes certain developments a little faster. It kind of is before your time. You might have to be pushed before you're ready, but it makes you ready. Different situations, just like last year when Bam got hurt, Kyle missed time for personal reason. Gabe Vincent blew up. Omer Yurtseven blew up. So you kind of started filling the holes. Do we have those players on the roster in representation with Kane and Jovic? We don't know. They're young. They are intriguing pieces. Could there be possible moves? Absolutely. But I want to get your point, Clutch. What really? I know last week we talked about it a little bit, but what is kind of like what is trending for you with the Heat? What is worrying you about the Heat up to now?
I'm starting to get a little bit worried because it's becoming a trend year after year that Tyler, who's very young, is getting hurt a lot. And he's out of the
Okay.
lineup with this nagging injury, that nagging injury, and the missing games. And it's kind of worrying me. And but in terms of play, it's just like everything just seems so clustered. Like the starting lineup doesn't seem to mesh as it should. And I'm starting to agree with your take about Caleb and Jimmy. I'll tell you
Oh, welcome aboard.
that.
It's just I don't know, man. Like I just like to sit down and sometimes I'm watching the games and I'm just analyzing. It's impossible not to notice the switch when the second unit comes in and when they start trickling in, and when Struce comes in and when Robinson comes in. Obviously, it flows better, and it's not only particular with Caleb and Jimmy because Caleb is doing a good job. He's doing what they're asking him to do, but is at the same time he's successful in what he's doing. He's overachieving, honestly, his role, but is it meshing well? Is it bringing out the best in that unit? Obviously, Lowry is playing more off the ball. Hero has to be more on the ball. The high pick and roll with Bam. Honestly, to a certain point, I believe Bam should even be more integral in the offense. And I'm not trying to take away. I'm not trying to say he's not being aggressive. I understand what he's doing defensively, and if there's one thing that if there's one positive thing that we can take from this beginning of the season is Bam is just starting to get truly appreciated around the league more and more and more, and actually being recognized as the defensive power that he is. Because when Bam comes off the floor, the defensive metrics for the Heat is off the charts in the negative aspect. Like he's that important to your team, and I would like to see him though more on the ball. Like I miss those days of Bam creating, and he's being aggressive. He's taking his shots, which I'm fine by. I'm fine with that. And like I'm also fine with Jimmy taking those corner threes. I'm fine extending, creating lanes for your team. But I just feel that there's a cluster there with Martin and with Jimmy. I was a fan of starting Omer and Bam because I think that would open up Bam offensively and defensively. It will create an ease because you have a big man rebounding. You obviously you're going to play some drop coverage. Bam is more of a freelancer, and I think honestly that's where Bam excels offensively too. Not only with high pick and roll, he needs to be freelancing, and with Hero as well. It's read and react. Lowry is a decent spot up shooter. One thing I give and got to give credit where credit is due is when Jimmy has been out, when other players have been out, Lowry has stepped up. So he's showing you that he can do it. He's kind of like navigating, finding his route. But we're inching there to that 20-25 game sample. So there's things that could happen. I understand calendar wise, they probably won't happen until January 15th in regards to the Robinson, a Deadman. Oh, Robinson can be moved, but you package him with Deadman, things of that nature. But then you start looking at our roster. if things trend that direction, and you saw there's a difference, man. And I wanted to ask you about this last week, and I forgot. I understand the difference in preseason and season intensity. But I saw something in the preseason with this team with some of the lineups, and obviously those lineups included Kane, they included Jovic, they included Drew Smith, a lot of the D leaguers. Now, but we had many combination lineups that I saw that were free flowing, and they were in sync. So the first game that included Omer, and I liked some of the things I saw with Omer and Bam. I saw what they were trying to do with Bam. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see that again in public because Omer has been missing. He missed the rest of the preseason. Now he's in danger of missing the whole season. And if it's a situation with his ankle and bone spurs, if he had surgery, he won't be back until January, February. So realistically, he's probably out. We thought Oladipo was going to be out longer than him. We don't know Oladipo's situation. So I'm not trying to make any excuses. I know accountability, and that's the reason you have depth. But I believe we're missing two of the core pieces that we were counting on this year. Do you think that's at this point, if you're Spo, do you start getting creative if you lose some of these games? Because that's one thing that happens with Spo sometimes. When he starts winning, he'll stick to that formula, like every coach probably does. But I feel there's a certain spark that could come from playing Kane and Jovic. I understand Kane's on a two-way contract. He'll probably end up on a standard contract. Highsmith is probably gone before the season's over. So I don't have any issue with that with the amount of game limits. We did it with Caleb. We started playing him. We saw he was a key rotational player. We transferred him to a standard contract. Forget the two-way. Forget the restrictions. Do you feel, Clutch, you're the coach, would you start messing around with Kane, Jovic? Obviously, no outside moves. Let's say this team stays intact. Big if. Would you start doing that right now, or do you wait a little bit more?
I feel like Spo earlier into the season, and I'm talking about earlier, like it's been months, but it's been just a few games ago. He was starting to mess around with the idea because of injuries, the idea of Jovic, but it kind of turned him off. That his first game he fouled out in like 2 minutes, and not fouled out, but he was in like serious foul trouble the entire time.
Yeah, he was in foul trouble,
and
yeah.
he was
Which is normal.
struggling because of the NBA intensity, like you said, difference between regular season and preseason is normal, and I think that kind of turned him off to Jovic, and maybe that also might turn him off to Kane right now because it's just fresh on his mind. Oh, I just gave this guy a try and he kind of pooped the bed, so I'm just going to hold off a little bit. I'd like to see Kane because Kane just seems to be in the right spot at all times, and at least in the preseason. We don't know what regular season would look like with the different energy the teams bring during the regular season, but I'd like to see Kane. I don't think we will, not yet. And it's just hard for me to find like a time to bring them in because they win and then you think, oh, they righted the ship, they're fine, and then they just lose again to a team they shouldn't be losing to. So you just don't know. And Spo, he needs either a losing streak to change his mind or he's not going to change his mind. And that's the only knock I have on him. But yeah. I don't know. I don't see them going to the young guys yet. But eventually, probably past I always talk about the 20-game mark. We're getting closer to that.
Yeah, we are.
That's probably around the time where he starts experimenting if this offense and defense doesn't like right itself pretty soon.
And honestly, we're in a key stretch right now where our next games against Charlotte. They're hurt. There's no reason we shouldn't win these games by at least 10 solid double digit wins, both of them, realistically. I feel also it gives you the opportunity to kind of I wouldn't say implement new players in your rotation because you kind of have a set rotation of what you want to go with, and I kind of see that flow. But I feel that, and I don't understand why teams do this. I do understand, for example, playoff basketball slows down. Games in the fourth quarter slow down. I get all that. But I never understood why teams go away. They could be playing 3.5 quarters, a certain style, attack defense, zone defense, whatever the case may be, which happened our last game. We were up. I think we were up by like 8 or 9 points. And then in the fourth quarter, we completely switch off on our zone defense. And the efficiency just went off the charts once again for the opposition. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like looking, I'm like, why do we go away from playing how we were playing for 3 quarters? Why do we take our foot off the pedal? We keep our guys fresh. We have the rotations fresh. And I asked myself, is it fatigue? That can't be fatigue. There's a couple games. They're resting. Not Sacramento, Charlotte, I believe, is on the second night of a back-to-back. So we have to take advantage. I want to see now what you do in the second quarter, going into the third. You got to push it. You got to push it all the way and do experiment with some combination substitutions. When Robinson and Strus are playing together, Bam is playing off the charts. Robinson's shooting efficiency is high. Butler kind of trickles then into the four. I don't know, man. I really think the whole Caleb Martin situation, if he's willing to try it, because the time is now. If you're gonna stick with, if you know Omer's not coming back, and Oladipo's not playing, you basically are playing the same rotation you played from the beginning of the year. So there's no switches there. So if you continue playing that rotation and you continue to see the same results, and you start losing a few games, then you really have to go back to the drawing board and wait a second. What are we doing? Is there going to be any moves? No moves? Okay, we need to start implementing some younger pieces that we want, that we can see that fits. Because honestly, Jamal Cain reminds me a little bit of the Derrick Jones role, where he's super athletic, a better all-around player than Derrick Jones, because Derrick Jones was a pogo stick, was a decent defender, great when you play the zone. He would play the big man, the high man, and his wingspan is insane. Jamal Cain is at that level of athleticism. So I was fine when we were going to start. I thought we could start Omer and Bam, because I remember, if you go back and look at the records, when we started Myers Leonard, Bam, and I believe we were starting Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, and Jimmy Butler. There was like a 20-game streak that we started. That was our starting lineup, and Bam played perfect next to Myers. So I thought that was a great fit. Jamal Cain could also play, which Derrick Jones took over the starting four that year when Myers got hurt, and it was successful. So there's combinations even within this roster that I'm not panicking, but you kind of see it. I'm like, we gotta think of it, because it always comes down to, we've been in all these games. We really haven't been blown out. Maybe like 1 game, 2 games. Like, we've been in all these games, and then the lead evaporates and the game gets out of control. So the formula is there. It's just getting the right pieces in certain parts. But aside from that, before we go into specifics today's show, we do want to talk a little bit about the Lakers situation. And I promise you, this is the last time that we'll talk about the Lakers situation unless a trade happens. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody listening. Remember, like, subscribe. Any questions you want to ask us, any suggestions you have, you can DM us, ask us live. We'll try to get to you as soon as possible. Is there anything clutch out around the NBA this week that has surprised you a little bit more?
The Jazz are still good. That's surprising.
Yeah. And people are surprised, but dude, they acquired some young talent, man. They're playing team basketball. They're playing a team sport, man, and there's no superstar. Lowry's a stud. Lowry's always a stud. He was in teams that he wasn't featured in, but they're playing good basketball. They can surprise a lot of people. They surprised me, man. They really have. I thought I knew they're trying to tank, but when they did acquire, and I said it before the season started, I'm like, they acquired some young talent that can actually play. Like, they didn't acquire scrubs.
Yeah, Danny Ainge is very good at tanking.
No, he only did it. He did it once with the Celtics, but he's not good at tanking. And you even try to tank, and you can't tank right. But when you mentioned that, it's also, have you seen how Donovan Mitchell's flourishing in a different type of offense where you don't have a 7'3" center clogging the paint, and then he still has Jared Allen. But look at the difference in game situations. Like,
I mean, the Cavs also don't have what do you call it? That 3 center lineup where they have Laurie playing small forward. Yeah, I don't know if I forgot who the other guy was, but it was Laurie. Oh yeah, Mobley and Jared Allen on the court at the same time. And that was a plus or fuck. But yeah, they kind of fixed it. And by trading away Lowry, you get Donovan Mitchell, and now you're good. Now you're a really good team.
You're really good. And now, before we get into the Lakers, one thing I want to ask your reaction on. What do you think of Minnesota right now? Have you seen them play lately?
Well, yeah, I've seen them play.
You
Like
seen them play?
those boy, I don't know. I think Anthony Edwards, who's supposed to be the young star of that team, is checked out
Absolutely.
because I saw this play
He had,
where they were just moving the ball around. He was just standing with his hands on his hips. He did not
you
kick.
saw that shit?
And then
Dude, he
his yeah, because
nothing.
he can't dunk. He can't get in the paint because they have
You can't.
Gobert and Cat in there clogging everything.
Yeah. And honestly,
It's
when the
horrible.
trade happened, one of the things that I was questioning, I'm like, how I understood what you're trying to do with Gobert. Okay, defensively amazing, but I'm like, how is Cat gonna play in the wing? He's not a very mobile player. He's not that super athletic. He has range. So offensively, I'm like, okay, they'll put Cat as a straight stretch four. You try to keep Gobert in the top of the paint, maybe in the low post off the center off the paint, so they could actually have lanes. But D'Angelo Russell looks completely neutralized. Anthony Edwards doesn't look engaged at all. Who's their power forward? Is it Vanderbilt? No, McDaniels. The one that they kept McDaniels. Vanderbilt is in Utah, and the Heat are trying to acquire him. Like they just look out of sync. I don't know if it's acclimating to each other, but I don't think there's actually I don't think there's an actual flow there, man. I really don't.
There's
But
not. You just like the two big man lineup doesn't work anymore. It's not. We're not in the early 2000s.
yeah, especially those two types of big men. You got to be at least one of them has to be super athletic, and be able to defend all 1 through 5, kind of like the Bam. If you got Bam in that situation, you might be fine. But that's either near or there. I want to ask your opinion first and foremost. Russell Westbrook finally, the Lakers move him to the bench, bring him in as a sixth man. Russell seems to be okay with it. So I at this point, you don't know what to believe. If he was actually against it, if it was kind of management. But why did it take for a year for another coach to figure out, maybe if I bring Westbrook off the bench, first of all, which I'm pretty sure psychologically, if you sell it to him, his value around the league has skyrocketed right now because this looks like the Russell Westbrook that they acquired. And they finally realized, like, maybe if we kind of separate his minutes with LeBron and him, let him be the point guard, let him run the show for a little bit, we can kind of get this ball rolling. So why do you think it took so long? First of all, do you like it? And we'll talk about other situations with the Lakers about possible moves. But do you like the situation how it's going on now? Is it salvageable?
It took so long, like because they didn't have a choice. Because this guy just played himself off the starting lineup. I think they wanted to make it work. They had to make it work. They had to fly that trade, the money, all that. They had to justify it, and he just played himself off of the starting lineup. I think statistically his numbers are better. I think statistically his value has gone up, but it still doesn't get results. As we're talking right now, they're 2-9. Regardless of that, like that team, there's something just about that team that doesn't work.
They're not built. They're not built correctly. And that's one thing that you see. Like that's the image we have of Russell. And imagine you can't put a square in a round peg. You can't do that. Like it wasn't a fit from the beginning. You can't try to make something work that is not going to work. I understand adjusting. I understand adapting. But from the beginning, you knew that wasn't going to work. Everybody knew it was going to work. Like you said it perfectly. They had to make it work. They had to make it work because of the assets that they gave up. And not only the assets that they gave up, who they didn't trade for or who they didn't sign in order to acquire Westbrook. Because we've talked about it many times. They could have acquired Buddy Hield. They could have signed DeMar DeRozan. They could have done so many things. So in retrospect, when you analyze that fully, it looks so much worse because of the collateral acquisitions that you couldn't do because of who you traded for. So do you write it out? Do you save LeBron? And one of the things that we're seeing in live is, I'm not saying the demise of LeBron James. He's 38 years old. This was coming. But LeBron James can no longer be your best player. LeBron James can no longer carry a team of scrubs into the playoffs. That's not going to happen in this day and age. These NBAs, there's a lot of parity in this NBA. It's not going to do it, man. Like this is I forgot the last time that I saw the NBA this even keel throughout the league. There's very few teams that are horrible. There's a lot of teams that are young, entertaining, and competitive, and they can cause you problems. Like before, a few years ago, you had maybe 3, 4 teams that are cut-out champions. There's right now not a team in the league that you can say for sure, oh yeah, they're going to be NBA champions. They're going to win the finals. You can't. I mean, can you tell me one clutch for sure right now?
The one that really gets in my
The
mind
Jazz.
is the Bucks. No,
okay, the Bucks. I'll give you that.
yeah,
That's true. I'll give you the Bucks.
because of Giannis.
Yeah,
I think Giannis
exactly.
is what LeBron was. Like he can
Yeah.
carry a team all the way.
Mm-hmm. And they're built solid. The Bucks are built solid. They got shooting. They got defenders. They got a veteran point guard. They got a stretch five in Brook Lopez, a great defender as well. Giannis, probably the best all-around player right now in the NBA. So I'll give you that one. Aside from that one, there's really nobody else. Like the NBA is a toss-up right now. Nobody. So for example, now today we're playing GM rules. Now you're Rob Pelinka. Well, you should be fired by now, but you still have a job somehow. You're Rob Pelinka. You're not going to trade LeBron James. And I would echo what Richard Jefferson said. And I remember talking about this. I forgot who I was talking to. Oh my God. I think I was talking to one of my friends or Bobby in one of our other shows. And I told him, I'm like, hey, dude, if I'm LeBron James, why do I sign an extension? Like, I don't need the money. I don't need the security. If I'm signing the extension, I'm basically guaranteeing the Lakers 2 years no matter what, unless they trade me. They're not going to trade me because I'm still a draw. So I think he made a mistake signing the extension. I really do, because he played himself. He gave the hand back to the Lakers. The Lakers know, or they can sell him on a plan or whatever. He's the de facto GM, whatever the case may be. Now you start looking at your assets, and then do you realize, okay, do you have Anthony Davis? If you get offered something for Anthony Davis, and you might have a few young teams that are willing to give up a lot of pieces for an Anthony Davis, do you do that move if you're Rob Pelinka? Like, let's say the Magic. We've talked about the Magic before. The Magic have a few pieces that they can move. They call you and like, hey, we want Anthony Davis. We'll give you X, 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 and X. Would you do that if the price is right?
I mean, maybe, but like you also have to think that right now Anthony Davis is kind of damaged goods because he's not the value he once was because he's just not an efficient jump shooter anymore for some reason. I saw a stat that Bam is a better jump shooter than Anthony Davis.
Yes, he is. Yes,
from
he is.
Mid-range area. And yeah, so it's just weird how value has just deteriorated. I think you still take a chance on somebody like that. It's just has to be one of those desperate teams like Charlotte, like you said, Orlando.
Yeah.
One of those guys.
Yeah. And then those teams. I mean, honestly, I don't envy. For example, I just compare. I understand the situation we're going on right now with the Heat and the way it's trending. This season, it's trending kind of like the year after our bubble run. We started the same way. We went on a little run, but we were tinkering between 500, and it was kind of the same situation where we didn't do like a shift in certain parts. It was just kind of like bringing it back. But we added maybe one piece. We lost another piece. We didn't sign Jay Crowder that year. So, but I'm honestly surprised because when you saw that season in 2020 for us, for example, for the Heat, you saw the wear and tear of the season before. So I understood it. In comparison to the Lakers situation now, you see the wear and tear, but you're looking at the wear and tear of players that don't fit anymore. So where Anthony Davis is right now and where LeBron James is right now, it's supposed to be eased for them, where they're still your best players, but the game becomes easier. That's the part of roster construction. Roster construction, you're always going to have players that carry certain loads, but the point of having a balanced team is that load is managed throughout the season. Like, you cannot expect a 38-year-old or a broken down, how old is Anthony Davis? 31, 32? I don't even know, or like 29. Like, you cannot expect them to carry you the whole season.
Like early
right?
30s.
Early 30s. I mean, he's still and it's not only about his body, man. Do you see him checked out as well a little bit? I know losing does that to you, but he seems to be like he's not there. like his behavior on the court and in the silence. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but they seem to be. I don't think he gets along with Darvin Ham that much. To be honest with you, I don't know why I get that vibe. Maybe it's just me,
I don't know. I think he just goes through the motions. But
right?
like you said, that's kind of a thing when you're just on a losing team. You either nut up or you like go through the motions. And that the Lakers are kind of folding right now. I don't see anybody giving inspired efforts to try to get out of this funk. So I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
just Anthony Davis, but yeah, I see it. I
Yeah,
see it too with him too.
dude. Did you see? Have you seen Kendrick Nunn's stat lines the past couple games?
Bro, you don't even
What?
want me to get on a Kendrick Nunn rant right now
Oh, please
because
do
there
so.
were
Please do
there were
so.
a bunch of fans last season. Last
Yep.
season they were like, "Oh, just wait until we get Kendrick Nunn and Trevor Ariza back, and then we're gonna dominate the playoffs. We're
Okay.
gonna be a seventh seed, but we're gonna make it to the finals because we got Kendrick Nunn and Trevor Ariza." Let me repeat it for you: Kendrick Nunn.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
We have um Kendrick Nunn, a knee sprain. He missed the whole year. And then that's one thing that I've noticed. There's a lot of players that when they play for us, they seem to obviously have their value raised. That's why most agents, when a player doesn't get drafted, they kind of try to funnel them to our system because it does raise their value, which like any agent wants to raise an asset up. And then I realized when they get that contract, they go on to another team, and for some reason, they never perform the same way. Name me, let's play this game. Name me a player that improved once he left the Heat.
I don't have a name for you
Let's
off the
see.
top. There are probably one or two, but I don't have a name for you off the top of my head.
hmm I'm thinking. I don't have anything either. I don't have one. I generally don't. If we get one during the week, I will tweet it. But I genuinely do not believe, and I can't say there's other organizations as well. The Spurs are very similar in that regards to developing players, and the Spurs were kind of the first ones, in my opinion, that really focused on the European players, the Latin American players. So they were kind of in the forefront of that.
Oh, I got one. Precious
Um,
Achua.
oh, but okay, but no, whoa, wait. That's a big asterisk. That's a big asterisk. He was a rookie. He wasn't a reclamation. He
That's
was
true.
drafted
That's true.
high.
That's true.
We were gonna play him. We just and now in retrospect, that's my only concern. When we drafted him, like perfect, we can play him next to Bam. Never played him next to Bam. I understand he was developing. I thought he could be a stretch four. I saw these two athletic freaks. Just imagine Precious Achua now next to Bam. I understand acquiring Lowry. Even okay, we're gonna go down this rabbit hole. 1 second. And I asked this before. In retrospect, was it worth it trading Precious and go on for Kyle? Yes or no?
I mean, right now, if we're looking at the season right now, probably not
Probably
because
not. And it's not fair to
Goran is
Kyle.
Goran is
Last year,
giving
I
was
got it.
giving you like this season with the Bulls. He might be giving you similar Lowry production,
Better shooting
and it's
percentage.
like it's like 10% of the price, and then you got Achua doing what he's doing. So
Oh,
it's
and
in retrospect maybe not, but we still did
oh
make the Eastern Conference Finals,
yeah,
so I'll give
I'll
him
give
that.
you that. I'll give you that. And honestly, it's funny. Goran could have been coming off the bench for us. Gabe would have been starting, which I think Gabe plays better next to Hero than Kyle does. Like, there's a
But I
lot of
don't think
questions,
Gabe would
man.
have progressed if we never got Lowry.
That's there you go. Very true. I'll give you that. You see, that's different points of views. I love that. There's always a good side, a bad side, and in between for every move. People always, and that is one thing that we've kind of lost as a society. I love this conversation with you right now because we can actually see the good and the bad in something and the productive and the non-productive. But people right now are very like either yes, 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 or no, no, no. And we kind of lose perspective. I really think we've lost perspective all across our lives in regards to not only personal lives but even with professional teams, man, even with professional athletes. Like it's an instant result, instant gratification, If it doesn't work now, it's never going to work. Guys, teams need time to grow. So those are things that I'm preaching in regards. Not trying to be positive, just trying to be realistic. I want to see what happens with us. But the final Lakers take. Is there any way humanly possible that you see the Lakers making the playoffs this year?
No.
No? I know, right?
Like, next question. No.
Dude, I was trying when I was thinking of that question. I'm like, I'm gonna ask Clutch that.
Like, I don't.
Even in
I
my
don't
head,
have
I'm
some
like, there's
in-depth
no fucking
analysis for
way.
you. It's just no.
Just no.
I don't have no extra. Yeah, just no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, why do you want to go? Explain to me. I don't want to go. No, that's it. No, there's no explanation needed. I don't want to do it. It's no. I don't know. I can't believe we got here. And I'll reflect on this. I remember when LeBron left, when I read the quote of Pat asking him, he was making the biggest mistake of his life. I understood where that came from, and I just reminded because I keep seeing your face of the Godfather again, so it just reminded me of that. And I genuinely believe I understand that's an emotional response at the time, but it's also a basketball. At that time, they were going to retool that roster. They were going to rebuild it around LeBron. When he up and left, obviously it threw us into a spiral. We were able to recover. Then Bosh got hurt, and obviously it derailed part of the rebuild. It led us to another rebuild. But if LeBron would have stayed with us, I'm not guaranteeing that we were going to win championships every year. I can guarantee we're going to be competitive. We were going to run into the Warriors in their peak, which would have been pretty cool for the NBA landscape to have LeBron in his dominance going against the Warriors, kind of like he did when he went back to the Cavaliers. But they went to championships. If he would have stayed with the Heat realistically, he would have probably won 3 or 4 more championships throughout the course.
He has at least the same amount of championships that he has now. At least, at the very least.
At least, right? Because sometimes I think about that. I'm like, it can't just be me that thinks that. Because they were going to, and this is one thing that I always remember, and I never understood why they did it. When they signed their contracts, all of them signed 6 years, $111 million, 110, whatever the amount was. The Heat had to trade for Bosh and for LeBron to guarantee those 6 years. They all knew they were going to opt out after 4 because they had the early opt-out year. It was a new contract, a new CBA, so salaries were going up. So they all knew they were going to leave and re-sign for max deals. We traded, I believe it was 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks, or 2 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks for those pieces. At the end, they were talking about how Miami got old. Obviously, you had Ray Allen, Shane Battier. They weren't coming back. You were going to go into a younger nucleus with Norris Cole. You were still going to keep Mario. You had young pieces building up. If they wouldn't have traded those first-round picks, they could have picked up a few more. Norris Cole was a first-round pick, I believe, or was an early second. I forgot. So you could have picked up more young pieces, right? And at that time, Paul Gasol was going to come over as your center and play alongside possibly Bosh or back up Bosh. So I was always intrigued about the what if, even the situation with Bosh. That's another situation, man, that after those years, it was always a what if he would have stayed healthy, what could we have done? And
we probably
went
to the NBA Finals in 2016.
Right, man. That team looked solid. And we never got to see them. It's still insane to me. And I don't think this has happened to many NBA franchises. We've had 2 franchise-altering sicknesses. I understand some franchises, for example, Len Bias, when the Celtics drafted him, he died of a cocaine overdose the night he was drafted, or the night after. That throws away your whole franchise, what you're planning to do. But the Heat had off seasons. Bosh was in midseason. But Zoe, after the Olympics, when we made a trade for Eddie Jones, and we were going to have a new nucleus, he goes down. With Bosh, happens to be the same thing. We trade for Dragic. We're going to have another nucleus that I would have loved to see Bosh and Dragic on their pick and roll play. Kind of like how he used to play with Bam, but imagine a spot-up shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing. Does it lead you to get Bam and Bosh? Because at the time it was Whiteside. Like, there's so many questions that franchises do. That's why I'm always happy when I see young franchises like the Magic, the Thunder. They're building the right way. They have young pieces. They're going to be exciting for many years. Obviously, they go through the struggles, but I don't think it's crazy to say this, but if you right now you're a fan, would you rather be a fan of the Orlando Magic or the Los Angeles Lakers?
Probably the Magic, and it's not even close right now.
Think about that. Think about what I just asked you, man. Like LeBron James and Anthony Davis. When did you imagine a team led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis were going to be 2-9? And Russell Westbrook. If I would have told you that 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you would have been like, "Oh, undefeated, Alex. They're going to win all their games." I'm like, we're living now.
Weird.
We have two white guys dominating the NBA, really. Luka and Nikola. And two slow European white guys. This is awesome, bro. I love it. I love it.
I
Basketball is in
mean,
its
they
best
did it
place
to the
ever.
point where Pat Riley felt forced to draft a slow European white guy.
Yeah, he did. That's true. That's true. But you know what's funny? He might be the most athletic out of all of them.
Yeah, probably. But it's not a high bar.
No, it's not really a high bar. It's like a 2-inch low bar seam. But we're already in 37 minutes in. We're gonna end it on this note. First, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for everybody tuning in. Like always, next week we're gonna go deep. You heard us talking about Magic. We're gonna go deep, and we're gonna try to talk some reporters up there or some podcasters with Magic relations, because we want to get a feel for what they're doing. I see them from afar, and I believe it's the mutation of basketball. It's funny how we went from the small ball, and we're kind of now morphing into the freak athlete that does everything. And if you look at basketball 20 years ago, a big man would have never been allowed to shoot. Even Dirk Nowitzki, he was kind of like Larry Bird was a shooter, but a true big man, a 6'10", 7-footer, like a Kevin Durant, like a Dirk Nowitzki, he would have been relegated to the post. Always, go rebound, go get down low. I wonder. That's one thing I also wonder. How many basketball players are frustrated that they never got to achieve everything they had, the capabilities that they had, because coaches put them in boxes, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And I love what the Magic are doing. I see their vision. They're stockpiling. Dude, you have at least, I want to say, like maybe 7 or 8 players over 6'10" on your roster, and you might trade a few and still be fine. And I was talking about this yesterday with Bobby, and I want to be able to talk to someone because I see the vision that they have. I wouldn't doubt that they make a trade with some of their key assets to acquire a veteran player. One name, Clutch, to keep an eye on, SGA, Gilgeous Alexander. I don't know if he ends the season in OKC. You have Josh Giddey there. There's obviously connections with Toronto. He's sick of losing, and you can move him for another haul. I'm not saying you need more of a haul, but you kind of already have your point guard in Josh Giddey. And OKC's, but you got Chet Holmgren. You got a few key pieces there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved. So maybe next episode we can talk about those young teams, not only the Magic but the Thunder, and kind of analyze how the NBA is being built on these freak athletes again. And there's a bunch of young teams. The Jazz, like we talked about this, you have bright futures. Like the NBA is entertaining. I've always been a fan. I don't like when there's a dominant team in the NBA. I like parity. I really do. I understand it's a superstar league, but I love the game of basketball. And when you play the game the right way, it's so fun and it's so cool to see it. So that was just my take on that. You guys have anything else to add today, Clutch?
Not really, man. But Duncan Robinson counter, we're like 26 3-pointers away from leading the Heat all time. I'm gonna keep you updated on that one.
Oh, but dude, and I'm so happy he's playing freely this year. The pressure of the contract last year is over him, and he's just playing basketball again, man. He looks comfortable out there. I really think so. But we'll see. We'll see how the season goes. For Clutch, I'm Alex. Thank you for tuning in. Next week is on Wednesday, I promise. Not Thursday. We're a little day late. But be safe, Miami. Enjoy, and hopefully he win tonight. Take care.